At just 20 years old, Elara's life ended the day her father signed the parchment. With one trembling signature, her fate was sealed, not to love, not to choice, but to ownership. The villagers whispered it before she even knew. She's being given to him. To the Baron. To the man no one dares approach. And though they whispered, none spoke his name above a hush, as though summoning his shadow might bring punishment. Baron Dravain, the richest landowner in 3 provinces. The man whose face was rarely seen, whose estate loomed at the edge of the valley like a fortress, and whose reputation was darker than the storm clouds that never seemed to leave his land. Some said he had killed his first wife. Others swore he drank the blood of those who crossed him. Many simply believed he was cursed, for wherever he went, silence followed. Elara had not been asked. She was told, "You are to be his now," her father said, unable to meet her eyes. "Our debts will be forgiven. You will save us. Save them, by being sold, by being handed, untouched, like some gilded trinket." Yet what choice did she have? On the day she was taken, the village gathered in silence. No one waved. No one dared speak. They only stared, eyes filled with pity, as though they were watching her coffin being lowered into the earth. The carriage that came for her was black as midnight, its wheels silenced by thick cloth, its driver masked. Even the horses seemed unnatural, their breath steaming in the air though the day was warm. She sat in silence, clutching the small bag of belongings she'd been allowed to bring. Every clop of the hooves on the dirt road echoed like a countdown. And then, at last, the Baron's estate rose before her, vast, shadowed, alive with secrets. The gates opened soundlessly, and the servants who greeted her bowed with stiff precision, eyes downcast, lips sealed. No one spoke to her. Not a word. They only guided her through corridors of stone, through halls hung with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her every step. And at the end of it, his chamber doors. The moment came. The doors creaked open, revealing a room bathed in half-light. There he stood, tall, broad-shouldered, his face, half covered by a dark scar that cut from his brow to his cheek. His eyes, sharp and cold, pierced her as though they could strip away every thought she dared keep hidden. This was the man they all feared. The man she was given to. Yet his first words were not cruel. Not commanding. They were something far stranger. "I did not ask for this." Elara froze. The Baron's gaze burned into hers, steady, unblinking. "They forced her on me," he said softly, almost bitterly. "Just as they have forced you." In that instant, her world shifted. The monster she had been told to fear was no monster at all. And what happened next would shock them all. The room was so quiet Elara could hear her own heartbeat hammering in her chest. The Baron's words, low, steady, and almost resentful, hung in the air between them. "I did not ask for this." Her knees felt weak. For days she had prepared herself to be a sacrifice, an ornament, a possession to be used or discarded. But now, the man before her looked nothing like the monster whispered about in every corner of the village. And yet, he was no gentle savior either. Baron Dravain stepped closer, and the light from the candelabra revealed the depth of the scar slashing down his face. His left eye, gray as ash, narrowed as he studied her. "You think I wanted this arrangement?" His voice was calm, but beneath it, anger pulsed. "Do you think I would summon a trembling girl to my halls, to be paraded as a prize?" Elara swallowed hard but forced herself to meet his gaze. I don't know what to think." They said, "You demanded me." He gave a short, bitter laugh, so sharp it echoed against the stone walls. "They always say what suits them. The truth rarely matters in this land." A silence fell. Outside, the storm that had been brewing all evening cracked open, rain battering the windows in sudden fury. Elara felt small, caught between the power of the storm and the power of the man before her. Finally, the Baron spoke again, his tone softer, though no less dangerous. "You will stay here, yes. But not as they believe. Not as some token of debt." His eyes flickered to hers, unreadable. Do you understand what that means? Elara's lips parted, but no words came. She didn't understand. She couldn't. The following days unfolded like a labyrinth she couldn't escape. The estate was vast, filled with corridors that seemed to stretch into silence. The servants obeyed, but never spoke more than necessary. Every gaze lingered a little too long, as though measuring her worth, or her chances of survival. The Baron himself appeared rarely. When he did, it was with precise intent. He asked her questions. Strange ones, not the kind she expected. Do you read? Yes. Do you fear blood? I don't know. Would you rather be pitied or respected? Elara faltered. Respected. Each time she answered, something flickered behind his eyes. Approval. Amusement. Or perhaps calculation. She could never tell. One night, while she dined alone in a long hall with portraits staring down from gilded frames, a figure slid into the seat opposite her. It was the Baron. His presence filled the space like a storm. You are being watched, he said simply, cutting his meat with a calmness that made her uneasy. By who? She asked. His eyes lifted, sharp as a blade. By everyone. By those who sent you here. By those who wish to see me fail. By those who think I will devour you alive. He set down his knife, leaning forward slightly. Tell me, Elara, will you let them be right? Her breath caught. This was no casual dinner. This was a test. And somehow, she knew, every answer she gave would shape her future. One evening, as the storm winds howled against the tower walls, Elara found herself wandering into a forbidden wing. The servants had warned her never to enter, but curiosity gnawed at her. The hall smelled faintly of smoke and iron. She followed it until she reached a door, half ajar. Inside, the room was filled with weapons, blades of every shape, polished and deadly. But what caught her breath was the portrait above the fireplace. A woman, beautiful, proud, with eyes that seemed alive. The Baron's first wife, Elara. His voice froze her where she stood. She turned slowly. The Baron stood in the doorway, shadows carving hard lines into his scarred face. You should not be here. His voice was flat, but his eyes burned. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. You wanted to know the truth. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. So hear it, then. My wife was murdered, not by me, as they whisper. By those who feared my power. They took her from me, and left me with scars both you can see, he touched his face, and those you cannot. Elara's heart pounded. She had expected cruelty, even rage. But what she heard was something far more dangerous. Pain. They gave you to me, he continued, because they think you a weakness. Another leash to chain me with. Another mouth for them to poison. But I will not break. And neither, if you wish to survive, will you. For the first time, Elara saw the mask crack. And beneath it was not a monster, but a man consumed by vengeance, fighting shadows even she could not yet see. Weeks passed. Whispers filled the halls. A plot was unfolding. Elara could feel it. Servants exchanged wary glances. Riders arrived in the night, leaving before dawn. Then, one evening, a messenger came. A letter was delivered to the Baron, sealed with the mark of a rival lord. Elara watched as he read it, his expression unreadable. Then he handed it to her. If you value your new prize, Baron, bring her to the feast. We should all see if she survives in your house of shadows. Elara's hands trembled. It was not an invitation. It was a threat. The Baron's eyes were on her. They want to see you broken, humiliated, to prove I cannot protect even the girl they chained to me. Her voice was barely a whisper. Then don't take me. For the first time, his lips curved, not in mockery, but in something that might have been admiration. No, he said firmly. You will come, and you will not bow. The rival lord's hall was blazing with light, every noble eye turning toward them as they entered. Murmurs rose like a tide. There she is, so young. She won't last a week. Elara felt the weight of their stares press down on her, but beside her, the Baron walked tall, unflinching. His presence alone silenced many. At the high table, The rival lord smirked. So this is your gift, Baron. Untouched, untested, fragile. His words dripped with venom. Elara's blood boiled. She wanted to shrink, to disappear, but the Baron's hand brushed hers, a silent command. Stand tall. And she did. I am no gift, she said suddenly, her voice clear across the hall. And I am not fragile. A stunned silence followed. Nobles stared, wide-eyed. Even the rival lord's smile faltered. The Baron's gaze flicked to her, and for the first time, true approval burned in his scarred eyes. The night ended in uproar. Whispers flew faster than arrows. The girl had spoken. The girl had stood. And when a rival knight moved too close, testing her courage, the Baron moved faster than lightning. His blade was at the man's throat in a single breath. She is mine, he said, his voice low but carrying through the hall like thunder. And I will not see her broken. The room froze. No one dared move. No one dared laugh. What happened next shocked them all. Not the defense itself, but the look in his eyes. For the first time in years, the cold, untouchable Baron had revealed something no one believed possible. Not cruelty, not indifference, but protection, and perhaps, something even more dangerous. And this, dear listener, is only the beginning of Elara's transformation, from sacrifice to something far more powerful. If you want to see what happens when she steps deeper into the Baron's world of secrets and shadows, make sure you hit subscribe, because the next chapter will leave you breathless. The days after the feast changed everything. Whispers spread across the province. The Baron had defended the girl. The untouched bride had spoken back, fearless. And though no one would admit it aloud, the power of that night rippled through every noble hall. For the first time in years, Baron Dravain had not stood alone. But such defiance came with a price. Elara noticed it first. Strange movements in the courtyard at night. Servants glancing at her with fear that was no longer pity, but warning. And the Baron himself, who once moved through the halls like a shadow, now carried an edge of tension that never left his eyes. They will strike soon, he told her one night, his voice flat, his gaze fixed on the rain streaking the window. Strike, you mean? Against you. Against both of us. His hand tightened on the hilt of the dagger at his side. You were meant to weaken me. Instead, you stood. That makes you dangerous to them. Elara's throat went dry. I never asked to be dangerous. No one ever does, he said, almost bitterly. Danger is not chosen. It is born. For the first time, she understood the truth behind his scar, his silence, his walls of stone. He had not chosen to be feared. The world had made him so. 2 nights later, the attack came. It was past midnight when steel clashed in the courtyards. Shouts tore through the silence, and flames licked the dark sky. Elara woke to the sound of battle, her chamber door thrown open by a servant pale with terror. My lady, you must hide. But even as she reached for her cloak, a figure filled the doorway. Not a servant, a soldier, sword raised. Elara froze, her heart slamming against her ribs. In that instant, everything she had feared, the whispers, the warnings, the unspoken threats, stood before her in flesh and steel. Before the blade could fall, a shadow surged between them. The Baron, his own sword caught the soldier's strike with a shower of sparks. With a single brutal movement, he disarmed the man and cast him aside. Elara, his voice was rough, urgent. Stay behind me. But even as he fought, more men poured into the halls. Betrayal bled through the estate's walls, servants turning on servants, blades flashing in the firelight. The rival lords had planned this well. They had come not just for him. They had come for her. Elara ran with the Baron through the twisting halls, the sounds of battle echoing all around them. He moved like a beast unleashed, every strike of his blade precise, merciless. But even he could not be everywhere at once. At last they reached the great hall, its windows shattered by the storm outside. There, waiting, was the rival lord himself, the same man who had mocked her at the feast. His smirk widened as his men closed in. So here she is, he sneered. The fragile dove who dared to speak. Did you think you could survive in his shadow, girl? You are nothing. Elara's body shook, but not with fear. With rage. She remembered the whispers, the pitying stares, the way her father's hand had trembled as he gave her away. For so long she had been silent, voiceless, powerless. But not anymore. She stepped forward, past the Baron's outstretched arm. I am not nothing, she said, her voice clear, sharp as steel. And you will choke on the day you thought I was. The rival lord laughed, raising his sword. Then die with him. The clash was brutal, steel against steel, blood on stone, thunder shaking the air. The Baron fought like a storm incarnate, his scarred face lit by fire and lightning. But there were too many. Blow by blow, he weakened. And then, as the rival lord lunged for the killing strike, Elara moved. She seized a fallen blade from the ground, its weight nearly breaking her wrist, and drove it forward with every ounce of strength she had. The hall fell silent. The rival lord staggered back, disbelief in his eyes, her blade buried deep in his side. He collapsed with a strangled cry, his men faltering, their courage breaking. The Baron finished the rest. His strikes were merciless, his fury absolute. Within moments, the invaders fled into the storm, leaving only the dead behind. Breathless, blood on her hands, Elara stood frozen. The rival lord's words echoed in her mind. Fragile, nothing. But as she looked at the Baron, at the man who had defended her not as a possession but as an equal, she knew the truth. She had shattered that mask. The Baron crossed the hall to her, his blade dripping, his breath ragged. For the first time, his hand touched hers, not as master to prize, but as man to woman. His eyes, fierce and scarred, softened. You were given to me as a chain, he said, his voice low, rough. But you have become my sword. Tears stung her eyes. In that moment, the girl who had been sold, pitied, and silenced was gone. In her place stood someone stronger. Someone dangerous. At dawn, the estate smoldered, but it stood. The servants whispered of what they had seen. That the Baron had fought not alone, but beside the girl. That she had struck the rival lord herself. That the untouched bride had become untouchable. And though the nobles beyond would continue to scheme, though whispers would never truly fade, one truth had been carved into stone that night. She was not a gift. She was not fragile. She was not his weakness. She was his strength. And together, they would shatter every shadow that dared to rise against them. The world had given her away. But she had taken her place back with blood and fire. And nothing, nothing, would ever silence her again.